Welcome back, everyone. No matter where you are, no matter what time it may be, I hope y'all are doing well out there. Now, most of the time we talk about Dogman encounters and it's stories of aggression, stalking, or just outright terror. But every now and then, I get submissions that flip everything upside down. These are encounters where Dogman wasn't the enemy, per se. Sometimes this thing it seems like it was protecting people. And that makes me feel insane just saying that out loud. Now, as usual, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just here to share the accounts as they come in. Before I get started, I just want to remind you, if you're listening and you've had an encounter of your own and would like to share it here on the channel, just send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. My email address will be linked in the description below. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for listening. Lock in, and let's begin. Everyone grab a drink, lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. I've been in the woods most of my life, and I'll tell you straight, not one thing out there has ever scared me the way that this did. Folks laugh when I bring it up, so I mostly keep it to myself. It was sometime around 2012, late October, if memory serves. I was out in the Daniel Boone National Forest here in Kentucky. I know these ridges and hollers like my own backyard. I wasn't even really hunting that night. I was just scouting, carrying my rifle more for comfort than anything else. The woods felt crowded almost as soon as I got in. You know how you get used to the hum of crickets, owls, frogs, all that? It was like someone muted it. Hollow, still. I tried to push it aside, but my gut wouldn't let me. That's when I noticed the sound of something following. It didn't sound like boots, not like a man. This was pads. Soft, but heavy enough I knew it was big. Every time I stopped, it would stop. I'd start again, and there it was, the same distance back. Always there. I'm not going to sit here and tell you and pretend like I knew what it was, or I thought it was this, or it could have been that. I had no idea. All I knew was it felt different, and I did not like it at all. My stomach just told me that there was something out there that was dangerous. And I'd read enough news blurbs lately about cougars slipping back into Kentucky, and the hair stood up on my arms. Now, I know the game wardens will tell you we don't have cougar here. They say the eastern cougar is extinct. Maybe that's what the books say. But that night I saw with my own eyes what the books don't admit. I caught a flash of it between a tree, a long body, tan hide, and that tail. You can't mistake it. Not a doubt in my mind what it was. My chest was tighter than a banjo string. A cougar doesn't follow you for fun. They tail you until they decide to attack. I gripped my rifle as tight as I could, tried to act like I hadn't noticed, but my head was spinning. I thought about my kids, thought about how stupid it was being out here alone. Then I hear a growl, a rolling, deep, kind of growl that crawls under your skin. I swear it rattled in my rib cage. And then something else cut through the trees. It wasn't the cougar, I can tell you that. It was a lot deeper, a lot rougher, not like any cat or even a bear that I'd ever heard. It was a snarl, but it stretched. It was raw, almost human in its rage. The cougar shrieked, not a growl this time, but a high-pitched panic scream. Then it tore off through the leaves like its tail was on fire. I didn't even see it go. I just heard it crashing away. That's when I turned and saw the thing that scared it off. Now you can imagine, whatever scares a true predator away is an apex predator of its own category. It was standing upright, hunched forward, shoulders so broad they looked like they'd split the seams of a shirt if it had been wearing one. It looked like a wolf with stilts for legs. This thing had to be 9 feet tall. It had a long snout, a wolf head. This was a Dogman, without a doubt. For a minute I wanted to think that this wasn't something alive, but I could see its breath fog white as it breathed into the cool night air. For a heartbeat, I thought I was next. My finger went tight on the trigger, but it didn't come for me. It just stood there, glaring into the dark where the cougar had gone. I couldn't think, I couldn't breathe. My brain just locked between this isn't real and you're dead. Then it looked at me. Not some Hollywood grin, just a look. Hard, steady, almost like it was making sure I understood. I wasn't here for you. And it just turned and melted back into the trees like it belonged. I stayed on the ground a long time, my rifle in my lap, shaking violently. I could hear my teeth chattering. When I finally got the strength to move, I half ran, half stumbled all the way back to my truck. The whole drive home I kept thinking about it. If that cougar had kept telling me, maybe I wouldn't be here to tell this. But the thing that scared it off wasn't any guardian angel. It was worse. It was something that could have finished me just as easily. But it didn't. I've told a handful of people over the years. Like I said before, most laugh. A few argue that I saw nothing because there aren't cougars in Kentucky. This guy's telling the truth. I know there's cougars here because I myself have seen them. Trail cam pictures of them, they are here. But I know what I heard patting behind me. I know what I saw slip between those trees. And I know cougars don't just give up a hunt without a damn good reason. This Dogman thing, it walks on 2 legs. And that night, for reasons I'll never understand, it wasn't my enemy. Anonymous. Reels. I've never been good at keeping journals, but I did jot down a few things the week that this happened, and I'm so glad that I did, because now, years later, I can hardly trust my own memory. I keep wondering if I mixed it all up, if I really saw what I think I saw. This was 2006. My friend Mark had a little cabin in eastern Tennessee. It's 1 room, wood stove, bunk beds stacked against the back wall. We used it as a weekend getaway. Sometimes we'd hunt, sometimes we'd just sit around the fire telling lies. That night it was me, Mark, and his cousin, Jeff. We'd been playing cards by lantern light. It must have been well after midnight because the bottle was half empty and the jokes weren't funny anymore. I remember the wind was howling through the eaves and rattling the tin roof. Then came the bang. It shook the whole wall behind me, a flat, heavy thud like someone had slammed both fists into the siding. We all stopped and looked. Another bang came, louder, rattling the lantern on the table. Jeff said bear immediately and reached for the rifle by the door. But bears don't hit a cabin wall like that. Not twice. Not in the same spot. The third hit came so hard dust sifted down from the rafters. Mark started cussing and headed for the window. He pulled back the curtain just enough to see out, then let it fall and said real quiet, "It's outside." I thought he meant a person, some drunk hiker or lunatic messing with us. But then the sounds came. A guttural, deep, wet snarl, nothing human about it. Jeff swung the door open like an idiot, raised the gun, and for a second the lantern light spilled across the clearing. That's when I got eyes on it. And trust me, it wasn't a bear. I don't know how anyone could see one of these creatures and mistake it for anything else. What I saw was huge, tall, jet black, hunched, and ears pricked up like a wolf. It stood just at the edge of the clearing. One arm was still raised from where it had been pounding the wall. Its chest was heavily moving up and down. Fog was rolling out of its mouth with every breath it took. Jeff slammed the door and backed away. None of us said a word. We didn't know what to say. We didn't know what we were looking at. All we could do was listen. For a minute, nothing happened. Then came the sound of something heavier crashing through the brush. Not the thing we'd seen, but something else. I'll never forget the roar that I heard. It was lower than a cat, rougher than a bear, almost like both mashed together. It circled, closer and closer, snapping branches, growling loud enough to rattle the boards. And then, just as quick as everything started, the noise tore off in the opposite direction. Whatever it was, it took off into the woods. We just sat there until we heard only the wind again. The thing at the window, the tall one, it never came back. It never tried the door, never tried to get inside. We didn't sleep, we just sat there with rifles across our laps until daylight finally came. Come morning, the truth was written in the dirt. Big tracks, wide pads, claws dug in deep. They circled the cabin. A cat, no doubt. Cougar, maybe bigger. Could have been a bear, I don't know. It had come right up to the porch, pacing, sniffing, scratching. And over top of those, in the soft dirt by the wall, were prints like nothing I've ever seen. Bigger than a man's foot. It had long toes, and also it had claws as well. That's when it hit me. Now, I can't even explain to you why I feel this way, but something in me just forces me to believe this is what happened. Those bangs on the wall, they weren't an attack. They were a warning. It wasn't trying to get in, it was trying to drive us out, to get us moving before whatever else was out there could make its move. I don't know why. I don't pretend to understand what we saw. But I'll tell you this. If that bear or whatever it was had circled just a little longer, maybe one of us wouldn't have made it home. Even now I can't wrap my head around all of it. Dogman, werewolf, monster. You can name it what you want. But that night, I think it saved us from something else. It was something worse, something that chose, for whatever reason, not to be. Thanks, Reels. Name redacted. Hello, Reels. Now, I used to walk home from work most of the time. I lived in a little town in southern Ohio. Nothing but 2-lane roads, cornfields, and a gas station that closed at 9 p.m. I didn't own a car then. I couldn't afford one. So my feet were my only mode of transportation. It was 2015, I remember, because my boots had holes in them. Every time I stepped in a puddle, I'd cuss that I hadn't saved enough for new ones. A dumb detail, I know, but that's the kind of thing you remember. Anyway, it was after 11 when I clocked out. The air was pretty heavy, the fog was hanging low over the ditches. It was pretty chilly that night. I remember I could see my breath. I hated that stretch of road. There was no lights, no sidewalks, just fields close on both sides. I wasn't a mile from the store when I got the feeling, the one like somebody's watching you. I told myself it was nothing, but I did quicken my pace anyway. I started hearing leaves shifting in the field. This wasn't the wind. It was footsteps, and big ones at that. I looked back, half expecting to see some drunk stumbling along the shoulder. There was nothing there, just the fog. I told myself it was a deer. It had to be, right? But the sound kept pacing me. Every time I'd speed up, it would get quicker as well. I remember whispering out loud, "Nope," over and over, like that was going to help or change my situation. At one point, I swear I caught the shape in the fog. Something black against the pale mist. Ears. That's the detail that stuck out immediately. High, pointed ears on a huge, upright creature. I was too far from town to run back, too far from home to sprint ahead. All I could do was keep walking and pray that I made it. So that's what I did. I had no other option. For nearly 2 miles, it shadowed me. I never heard any aggressive sounds, no growls or anything like that. I never saw it come onto the road. It was just those steady steps in the ditch. Sometimes it rustled in the cornstalks, sometimes the silhouette drifting behind me. The weirdest part? After a while, I stopped feeling like prey. It was still terrifying, don't get me wrong, but it didn't feel like it was waiting to attack. It was more like it was just keeping pace. When I finally reached the edge of town, the first yellow glow of the street light fell across me. That's when this thing stopped. The sounds just cut off. Today, I'm kind of confused on whether I should have or shouldn't have. But my heart was in my throat as I turned around to look. I saw it clearly for the first time. It stood far enough out that I couldn't make out fine details. But it was broad. Its fur was matted. Its eyes were shining gold in the light. One hand was rested against the trunk of a tree like it was just leaning on it, holding itself up. And it was just staring at me. My knees wanted to buckle, but it didn't move toward me. It didn't chase me. It just stood there and waited. For what? I don't know. I don't know why, but I raised one hand, like a wave, maybe, or maybe just to prove to myself it was real. And then, without a sound, it turned and disappeared into the fog, and I never saw it again. I stood under that street light for 10 minutes. I just couldn't walk yet. When I finally did make it home, I locked the door and sat on the floor and cried like a kid. Some people will say it was stalking me. Maybe it was. But why did it let me get away? It had me in the perfect position to make me disappear. Part of me thinks it was something else, an escort of sorts, a shadow making sure I got home. I don't know which version scares me more, if I'm being truthful. Anonymous. Brother Reels. I used to drive long haul for a living. I saw a lot of things out there at night. Accidents, weird lights in the sky. Every animal you could think of darting across the highway. Some you knew, some you didn't. But nothing has been burned into my brain like what I saw at a rest stop off of I-64 in West Virginia. It was 2009. I'd pulled in late somewhere near Beckley. Just one of those little cut-off rest areas with vending machines and a couple lights buzzing over cracked pavement. I was extremely tired, but not enough to sleep, so I parked and stretched my legs. It was quiet out there, too quiet for being right off the interstate. I didn't hear any sounds at all. I remember thinking the silence just made things feel extremely eerie, and I'm not a scary guy. It's like the air itself was pressing down on me. I walked to the edge of the lot where the pavement gave way to woods, and that's when I started hearing the growling. It sounded identical to two large dogs getting ready to fight. But then the shape started moving, and I realized these weren't strays. One was massive. Its fur was bristling under the glow of the lights, upright, but shifting low like it couldn't decide if it wanted to run on 2 legs or 4. The other one was smaller, but it was faster, circling, and it was snapping its jaws with a sound that rattled the trees. Every instinct I had, my very soul itself, was screaming at me to get back in the truck. But no matter how hard I tried to physically move, my feet just would not cooperate. The bigger one lunged first, raking its claws, and caught the smaller one across the shoulder. The smaller one screamed out, a high-pitched and wild scream. It darted in with speed that I couldn't track with my eyes. They hit the dirt in a blur, biting, tearing, blood everywhere. That was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen. It was raw. It was like nothing I'd seen in nature before. I don't know how long this fight went on, but when it was over, the smaller one broke free, and it limped off into the woods and was gone. The bigger one stood there, its head swinging side to side. Its eyes caught the light, reflecting this goldish amber color that I'd never seen in an animal's eyes before. It was alive in a way that made me feel sick to my stomach. And then, like it finally remembered that I was still there, it turned its head toward me. I swear it could have crossed the lot in 2 steps if it wanted. But it didn't move. Not closer to me, anyway. It just stared for the longest time. Then it let out this low, rumbling sound that I can't describe before it disappeared into the woods after the other one. I stumbled back to my rig and locked the doors. I just sit there holding the steering wheel like a lifeline. My heart didn't slow down for hours. The thing that stuck with me wasn't just the sight of them fighting. It was the feeling that one of them had been after me. I don't know which, but the bigger one. It kept that from happening. So what does that make it? Protector? Rival? I don't know. All I know is not all of them are the same. And sometimes the worst night of your life doesn't end the way you think it will. I appreciate your time. Ron. Reels. I was only 12 years old at the time of this incident. It was the summer of 1997. That was the age where I thought I was completely invincible. Pure superhero. I was riding bikes down gravel hills with no hands, fishing creeks alone till dark, never telling my folks where I was. If they knew the places I wandered into, they'd have tanned my hide. There was this creek that ran behind my granddad's farm in southeastern Ohio. It was not deep. It was knee-high at most. But it cut through the woods in a way that made it feel like a secret place. My own little private spot. I'd spend hours there catching crawdads, flipping rocks, pretending I was some great explorer. That day was hotter than blazes. Cicadas were out, buzzing wild, sweat rolling in my eyes. I'd been down at the creek all afternoon. My shoes were soaked, my jeans rolled up. At one point I slipped and fell hard into a pool. Knocked the wind right out of me. I scrambled up coughing, embarrassed, even though no one was around to see it. Except I wasn't alone. Now, I don't know if it was the splash that drew it or if it had been there the whole time. But when I looked toward the opposite bank, it was standing in the trees. Black fur from head to toe. It was all matted, stuck together like it just come through the water itself. It had these long arms that were hanging down extremely low. I could see these hook-shaped claws catching little flashes of sunlight through the leaves. Its ears were high and pointed, its snout long and sharp. My brain screamed wolf, but wolves don't walk and stand like men. Or do they? I slipped on the rocks trying to back away, nearly went underwater again. When I came up sputtering, it hadn't moved at all. It was just watching me like I was an idiot. My heart was hammering so loud I swore that the thing could hear it. I waited for it to step forward, to come after me, but it just didn't. It tilted its head slow to one side, like it was trying to figure out what I was. This whole encounter probably lasted between 30 seconds to a minute. My legs were shaking so bad I had to crouch on the rocks to keep from falling. This is a level of fear that cannot be explained through an email. You just have to feel it to believe it. Then, without any type of violent movements or behavior, it just turned around and went off into the trees like it wasn't interested. I sat there in the creek until my jeans dried stiff. I couldn't move. I couldn't even cry, even though I wanted to. When I finally made my way home, my granddad asked why I was pale as a ghost. I told him I'd slipped and nearly drowned. Didn't dare say what I'd really seen. For years I tried to tell myself it was just some trick of the heat. A shadow, my imagination. When you see something that isn't supposed to be real, you'll do anything to explain it away, because it will destroy your worldview and everything you've been taught to believe. Deep down, I knew better than any of these excuses. I know the weight of that thing's eyes on me, the way it studied me, not like prey, but more like a puzzle. That was the only time I ever saw one. And the strange part, it didn't hurt me. It didn't even seem angry at all. It was just a bystander at the creek, watching a dumb kid flail around and nearly drown himself. I don't know why it left me alone, but I will tell you this. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't the monster that attacks you. It's the one that doesn't. This is unsettling, to say the least. I hear so many encounters about people escaping near-death experiences with these creatures. But in my opinion, I think they are just like us, you and me, humans. I think there's bad ones and good ones mixed in. Not all of them are out to get you. But I could be wrong. That's just the way I believe. Anyway, I appreciate you letting me get this off my chest. I hope your channel continues to do well. I really enjoy listening. Anonymous. Friends, legends, family. That's going to wrap up tonight's upload. 5 encounters where Dogman wasn't the attacker. But was it really protecting people? Or just keeping balance in the woods? I'll leave that up to you to decide. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Dogman can sometimes act as a guardian, or is it always just another predator sizing us up? If you enjoyed these encounters, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. Again, if you have an encounter that you're ready to share, just send me an email. We can talk it over. And you can decide from there whether you want to move forward. My email, again, is in the description below. A huge thank you to all of these people who submitted these encounters. It takes a lot of bravery, a lot of guts, a lot of spine to come forward and share this type of event with thousands of people. Especially if all you've got was sideways looks and people laughing at you every time you mention it. Thank you guys. Without you, this would not be possible. I think every encounter we can put out there is very important, no matter how small or how brief. It learns us a little about how these things behave. Also, before I close, a huge shout out to all you legends for being here and listening. Another huge shout out to the channel members. You know exactly who you are, and you guys are awesome, amazing individuals. Thank you for the continued support for this channel. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me again today. Everyone, please stay safe out there. I love each and every one of you. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.